Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz. I am very pleased and proud to welcome this gentleman here tonight, and I have to read this because he is so accomplished. Our guest is Dr. Shawn Anthony Robinson. He is an advocate, author, educator, and researcher. He graduated from the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh with a Bachelor of Science degree. He's got a master's in education from DePaul University. He's got a Ph.D. in language and literacy from Cardinal Stritch University, which is no small feat. He is director of Pure and Complete Phonics, LLC. He's an independent scholar. His research focuses on the intersection of race, giftedness, and dyslexia, and that's part of what we're going to be discussing tonight. He brings a wealth of academic experience, training, and knowledge about the psychological development of dyslexia. He is a director at large for the International Dyslexia Association, and he is a paid researcher at the Wisconsin's Equity and Inclusion Laboratory, University of Wisconsin-Madison. In addition, he has guest edited 2 books, and he's written about 25 plus articles. He's also written 1 children's book on dyslexia, which we'll be discussing tonight as well. And the thing is, all of this is impressive enough. However, it becomes more impressive because Dr. Shawn Anthony Robinson was unable to read. He was illiterate until the age of 18 and a senior in high school. And he is 40 now. So that is a tremendous accomplishment for anyone, but especially someone who was unable to read until they were 18 years of age. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Well, thank you very much.
And I can't even say how proud I am of you, having just met you, for all of your tremendous accomplishments. I mean, and we're going to talk about, you know, your upbringing and that kind of thing. But I mean, when people hear what you've accomplished in such a relatively short period of time, not having been able to read until you were 18, what's their usual response?
They're shocked.
Of course,
particularly from the school system I came from, which is one of the best high schools in Illinois and probably the top in the country. So people are really shocked that I came from a high school with such high rigorous academics and came out illiterate.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? What was the high school that you went to?
I grew up in Wilmette, Illinois, which is right outside of Chicago, the north suburbs, next to Evanston. I say Northwestern, everyone knows what Northwestern is.
Of course,
so
and Evanston is a very affluent suburb of Chicago.
Yep. So I lived right in the suburb next to it, north, and I grew up single-parent household. Mother worked days and nights to make sure I get a good education. Pretty much went through the K-12 system angry because, you know, I didn't know how to read, and then probably other factors too of not having a father around. You know, that stuff psychologically can hurt young men and women.
Sure.
Because you want to feel loved, you don't want to feel abandoned, so you have all of these emotions going through. And so probably with that, and then the fact that I couldn't read.
Yeah.
And I'm like screaming for help, you know, like help, help.
Sure.
And no one was really like helping me learn to read. I think all that just kind of really just molded who I am today.
Sure.
High school, elementary, middle school, I was in special education pretty much my entire career. Little small classes with 12, 15 kids, if that. Not so much academic learning, more like behavioral focused because I was angry.
Sure.
But no one look at the root causes.
Yeah.
And then, but I had some very good teachers though, particularly when I got to high school. That's where I think a lot of my experiences molded who I am today in different areas of my life, particularly before I got kicked out of high school. I went to...
You were kicked out of high school?
Yeah, because of my anger. I was sent to alternative high school where the bad kids go.
Yeah.
The bad kids.
The bad kids.
Yeah, my sophomore year, and I was picked up by a white 12-person van, passenger van, at like 9 o'clock and sent home at 2 o'clock. So it's like freedom.
Yeah. Do you think that getting kicked out of high school and being sent to an alternative school played some kind of a factor in your ability to A, learn how to read, and B, become so accomplished?
They didn't focus on reading at all.
They didn't?
No, it was all behavioral and, you know, like how to conduct yourself.
Sure. Was it maybe that discipline that you were?
Oh, yes.
So that
yes, yeah.
played a role,
Yeah, I had
a
some
positive role.
I have some really great teachers that I still speak with today. Like, you know, I'll either Facebook them or text them or email them or call them.
Are they too amazed?
Oh yeah. They call me their proudest students, or one of the proudest students. You know, I remember my sophomore year, my coach, Coach Carpenter, he actually called me into his office before I was sent to the alternative school, and he said to me, you know, you make it hard for me to help you. Like, I'm out of options. Like, either end up dead, in prison, or you're gonna flunk out. Like, you're making it very hard for me to help you.
Sure.
And he's like, look, I'm a 6'5" white guy. I don't know what it feels like to be African American, but I want to help you, but you're making it hard. And so he's like, but I have one more option that I'm gonna try. He said, let's just try and see what happens. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, man. Like, let's do it. And he got me involved coaching Special Olympics, and I haven't stopped coaching since. I've been coaching since 94, so 20 plus years. I've been involved as a coach, a mentor. Man, well, don't call them kids anymore, but
Right.
adults now, because
Sure.
a lot of them, a little
But
older
adults
than me.
are still involved
Yeah,
in
yeah.
special education.
So-
Our floor director, Ed, who you met earlier,
Yes.
and he's sitting behind the cameras
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
He's been involved in special education, special
Olympics.
Olympics for years,
Yeah, I've been a coach.
and still is to this day.
I think that experience changed like my whole dynamics of how I saw myself as a person and as a leader, because the young men and women that I was working with, they didn't see color and they didn't see that I was angry. And so to be around them, I had to change my behavior.
Sure.
I had to adjust, and I think that's where the alternative program came in, and teachers were like, look, if you don't change your behavior, you won't work with them, period. End of story, like no negotiation.
Yeah.
So that little carrot, like dingling over me.
Yep,
And so they
yep.
knew how much the student athletes respected me and how much I respected them. So I think everything kind of just worked itself out.
Sure.
And I coached.
Let's talk about how it came to be that you weren't able to read until age 18. You said you came from a single family, a single parent household. Your mother probably, I don't know for certain, but did she work more than one job to support the family?
She was a nurse,
Okay.
registered nurse, emergency room. So she worked late, but she always had, somebody tutoring me or trying to help me academically. So she always invested in, my education.
Sure.
She was like, you're not staying with me when you graduate, you're getting out the house.
Yeah. Were you a only child?
Yes, one child.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
All
think she
right.
wanted any more after me.
I don't think it's fair for anyone to say, well, his mother wasn't around to help him learn to read. I think that sometimes kids just fall through the cracks, and you were probably one of them.
Yes.
Did your mother read to you?
Oh yeah, she read.
Sure.
Yeah, she's very educated, master's degree.
Yeah.
She just couldn't figure out, why the light wasn't clicking for me.
Do you know today, based on all your research that you've done, why the light didn't click on for you, as you say?
It's just a lot of reasons. One, I was over-identified as having a behavior issue, and I was the sole focus of my learning, which is, you see what you get. And so people just saw me as being angry but not looking at the root causes. And I think the other piece was the instruction didn't match my learning.
Ability.
Yes, where I was at. And so, if you give a kid something that they can't read, they're going to get frustrated.
Sure.
And that's what happened. Like, they gave me
Sure.
something. And
It's hard to attain an equitable education
Yes.
today when you're, as you've written, quote, shackled by illiteracy and left adrift in the mainstream educational system that misdiagnoses one's needs.
Yes.
So we've learned about your experiences, and before we went on the air here, we were talking a little bit about the percentage of kids who, like you, sort of fell through the cracks.
Yes.
And I was shocked by the number. Why don't you share with people the percentage of kids who fall through the cracks because of dyslexia or illiteracy, reading disabilities, that kind of
Went
thing?
down to 5%. 20% of students in the classroom or have dyslexia. So I mean, there's a lot of factors. You know, I try not to make assumptions or point fingers at people. It's,
Sure.
you know, there's multiple sides. It could be, you know, parents don't know what best resources to provide their kids or what service to look for. And you could have teachers that might not know how to work with students with dyslexia or have been trained. So it's like, where can we meet in the middle to have, you know, common ground to move forward to help
Sure.
the kids?
So it's 20%
Yes.
that have dyslexia.
Yes.
So if you're looking at other reading disabilities, that percentage goes even higher.
Possibly.
You know, you were in a special education type program,
Yes.
and yet still fell through the cracks.
Yes.
How does that happen? You know, because teachers are supposedly trained, you know, they're educated to deal with kids such as yourself. How does that end up happening, that they still, you know, you guys still fall through the cracks?
It happens today. I worked with a young man, let's just say Northeast Wisconsin, 17 years old, going to be a junior, and he reads at a first grade level. So what's he supposed to do when he graduates in 2 years?
Yeah, yeah.
Like what hope is this kid going to have when he graduates?
Well,
how
but you can certainly
Oh, yeah.
be, you are an
Well, I'm just saying,
inspiration
like,
to him.
for him, like, or
Yeah.
for her, or, you know, what's life going to offer them when they
Right.
can't even fill out a job application or can't read a job application?
Right, right.
And how is that they gotten this far in the
Without-
education system without having the proper diagnostic and, you know, academic curriculum? Because 17 years that he or she's gone through and just kind of pushed along.
Yeah. And let's face it, not everyone can be a Dr. Shawn Anthony Robinson. You know, you are, I think, an exception rather than the rule. And while that's great for you,
Yes.
and so many kudos and hats off to you,
Thank you.
the better majority of kids that are falling through the cracks they either don't get the same opportunities that
Yes.
you have, they don't know how to grab the opportunities when presented to them,
Yes.
they may not even recognize the opportunities as they're possibly presented to them. So what do we do? I mean, do we have to kind of go back to basics with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, going through grade school, elementary, and leading into high school? How do we solve this problem? You know, and what is the main root of the problem? Maybe that's where we have to start.
Well, I mean, there could be various factors. In my own personal opinion, I think it's early assessments. Get the kids diagnosed as early as possible, you know, and then also, have their parents, if they struggle themselves, help them. Because then you change the whole dynamic of a family and a household versus just one, right? And then you see families and kids aspiring to be better when you help the whole versus the one.
Sure.
And then even diagnostic assessment starting in, you know, pre-K elementary school, just if they're already struggling with their vowels and their, you know, alphabets and all everything, start helping them and then start exposing them.
I have to imagine, and you said that you were very angry because you couldn't read. I mean, that's got to be an embarrassment, you know, to see other kids around you reading and you struggling with it.
Yes.
Were you bullied? I'm assuming you
Probably
were.
a little bit of both.
Yeah,
A bullied and a bullier, because I was angry.
sure.
Yeah.
And so you got bullied and then bullied back, or were you kind of leading the charge on
Probably
doing some of
both.
the bullying?
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
I had to take responsibility, you know, for my actions when I was growing up because I was just angry, like a bull. And I
Yeah.
can see it in kids now, you know, when I go talk to kids in elementary school, I can see the anger already
Sure.
building up. And
Sure.
it's just a matter of time before that balloon just
Yeah.
pops.
And is it anger based on the fact that they can't read,
Right.
or are there other things also contributing to that anger?
There could be other things too. Like I'm not a psychiatrist by trade. I just have, you know, a gift to really understand some of where the kids are at. And it could be families, it could be socioeconomic status. I mean, I don't know those things, but when the kids that I have worked with who struggle with reading, their frustration is being embarrassed
Sure.
and wanting to read.
Sure.
But then if you get called on and you stutter or you can't get the word off, then your peers start, hey, you can't read,
Yeah.
you're stupid, ha.
Yep. You know, it's sometimes it's embarrassing enough just to be called on in school,
Yes.
even if you're at the top or middle range in your class. You
Yes.
know, I mean, people I think inherently don't like to be called on for
Yes.
fear of giving a wrong answer
Yes.
or just saying something, maybe just freezing up and not being
Yes.
able to answer the question, period.
Yes.
But then you add another whole layer of challenges to that,
Yes.
you know, and there you go. It just makes for a bad situation overall. I know you said you went to alternative school, but
Yes.
were you involved in any kind of athletics in school? Or?
Yes and no, but my anger took the best of my patience.
Okay, so you really weren't involved in extracurricular activities.
Not much.
Okay.
No, here and there.
Yeah.
But I can't say I was, like fully 100% involved.
Yeah. What
I-
kinds of things were you
I was just a body.
half involved in?
I was 100% involved with Special Olympics, but a lot of my other teachers, coaches tried to get me into other sports, but I was just all over the place.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
You
bunny.
know, each state has acceptable and not acceptable levels of achievement, if you will, that
Yes.
kids have to meet.
Yes.
How is it that, now here you were growing up in Illinois, so this is not something that is unique to Wisconsin.
Right.
How were you able to get as far as high school senior with not being able to read?
It's a good question. If I knew it, I'd be a millionaire.
Me too. I thought maybe you could give me the answer. You know, all your learned.
Just people getting pushed through the system. That's all it is. Just keep pushing through. I don't want to deal with you anymore. You're a troubled kid. I don't want to see you. Let's just move you on so we can get you out.
Yeah, but if they're doing that with 20% of students, and I tend to think that they probably are. I mean, I don't have any concrete proof of that, but you know, no school district, no school system wants to look like it's failing
Correct.
these basic levels of achievement, right?
Yes.
And when we have administrations in the past who started the No Child Left Behind Act, I think that while it was well intended, I think it created some additional layers of problems. And it became very hard to meet those levels. And so rather than, and funding, let's face it, is based on meeting certain levels of achievement. And no school district or system wants to not get certain amounts of funding. So let's pass these kids on
Correct.
so that we maintain our funding levels, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I personally think we have to go back to basics and say, you know what, is it about the money or is it about getting these kids to have a decent education so that they can be valuable contributions to society and have some self-respect about themselves and be able to, you know, be independent as adults, right? I mean, sure, it's about the money, but it has to be, I think, more so about the kids.
That's right.
And if you do the right thing by the kids, the money should automatically flow through to the school systems.
Yes.
You're agreeing with that?
Well, kids are our future. And if we don't invest in our kids,
Right, right.
we're investing in something else, which
Yeah.
is jails and prisons.
Yeah,
That's the whole, I mean, if we don't invest in kids now who struggle,
Mm-hmm.
they get older, we're going to pay for it one way or the other.
yeah. Well, that's very true. And yet, you know, we just keep kind of doing the same thing over and over and
Every
over
year.
again. And who was it that said, was it Einstein? I can't remember who said it, but they said, you know, paraphrasing, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, that's the definition of I forget what the word is, but you can't just do the same thing over and over again and expect that you're going to have different results.
That's true.
You're just wasting your time. So how did you learn to read?
I was taught by Dr. Robert T. Nash here at the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh in the Project Success Program. He tested me going into my senior year of high school. I drove up here in a snowstorm with my mother, and I'm kicking and screaming, cursing at her, telling her I'm dumb, stupid, slow, go home. And so she pulls over and she's like, okay. So she calls Dr. Nash. She's like, hey, we're going home. Between him acting like a little kid and the snowstorm, it's not safe. And Dr. Nash told my mom, he said, I would not let any little snowstorm stop me from getting an education. So mom was like, oh, Lord, we got to go. So we came up here, and he tested me, and he said, you have dyslexia. And I was like, what's that? And he explained to me about spelling and reading and, phonemic awareness and, just not having a good understanding of the sound structure of our language. And said, but I see you have a gift in you, and I see the gift has been, buried beneath anger and a lot of hot mess.
Right.
And so he said, I want to accept you to my program, but doesn't guarantee you get accepted into the university. But if I accept you, I'm pretty much sure you're going to get in. And so on the way home, I'm going, oh, Mom, I'm going to college. She's crying, I'm crying, everyone's crying. And so then the application part came, and I was too illiterate. So my mother filled it all out. She did all my application, my essay, everything she wrote, because I wasn't able to do it. And then after she submitted, not too long ago, I got the acceptance letter. And from that point on, it really just changed my life.
Sure. Learning
to read. I met other students like myself from different parts of Wisconsin, even part of Illinois and the Midwest, and some from different parts of the country who came, and we all had something similar. We were all illiterate.
Sure.
We had some that were mildly illiterate, some that were completely illiterate, and some that were just on the border. So we all shared a common thing, and so I think that helped too, building the bond and the peer mentoring and things like that. But really, if it wasn't for Dr. Nash, seeing my gift and seeing my potential, I don't know where I would be.
Sure.
Lord knows,
As you were growing up then, Shawn, did you find yourself kind of faking it at times?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What do they say? Fake it
To
until
make
you
it.
make it.
Yeah.
And, but you can only fake it so long.
Yes.
And then you get to a point where you're not going to be able to make it.
Yes.
You hit that particular juncture,
Yes.
and you can't get over that last hurdle.
Correct.
To move on to the next level.
Yes.
So tell us about your post-secondary experiences, because again, for someone who at the age of 18 was first learning how to read,
Yes.
That must have been great and exhilarating and yet scary as hell.
Yes.
To go on to college when only a year earlier you'd been learning how to read.
Yeah. It was a struggle. It took me 6 years to get my undergrad degree. It usually takes people like 4
or 5.
Yeah. But I was so low that I had to learn everything that I missed in elementary, middle school, and high school. So all the basics, you read, write, mathematics, like the real
The
base,
core subjects,
the
yeah.
basics. I'm talking about like the lowest. I had to learn all that, plus my college load too. So I had to do what I had to do to be successful. I had to buckle down, be disciplined, take advantage of all free resources that were on campus.
Were there an abundance of them?
Oh,
or-
yeah. There was always free services. You got to take advantage of them.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I took advantage of all of them, and anybody who would help me learn. Like I didn't, and I think that that mentality that was developed at that time kind of stuck with me through my master's, my Ph.D., and even after my Ph.D. of don't be embarrassed to ask for help. Because a closed mouth doesn't get fed. You got to always ask somebody.
I love that expression.
You always have to ask somebody, right? You can't eat with a closed mouth, right?
That's true.
Unless you have a tube. I'm just saying, yes.
Yeah.
But But ideally, you have to always ask, and I think a lot of times people's pride and egos get in the way. And I learned that hard going into my collegiate experience, and so from that, I just took advantage of everything I could: reading, writing, instructors, friends.
Sure.
And so that just kind of stuck with me. When I finished my 6 years, I went straight on to my master's, which took me 5 years, and my admission advisor in the program, he was like, look, you have strong characteristics, you have strong reference letters, but your GPA is low. It's like, it's really low for a graduate program. It's like, however, because I'm gonna make an exception, he said, because I see a gift. He said, I'm gonna allow you to do this graduate program, but only one class at a time.
Okay.
And you're gonna have to get 3 Bs or better to maintain in the program. And you have to go to the writing center because your writing's awful. He said the S word, but he said your writing's awful.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, thanks for telling me something I don't know already, right? And so I took advantage of the writing center. I got my grades back, and I freaked out because I got 2 Bs and a C. And I was like, oh, I'm done. So he called me in, and he didn't say anything. He just looked at me. I'm sweating, nervous, and he said, you know what? I'm going to allow you to continue because I saw your effort. He said, but keep going to the writing center. And so I just kept going to the writing center. So after those 11 years, I had about a small 2-year window break. And then I went on to get my enrolled into my Ph.D., which took 7 years. So I was technically in school 18 years straight after high school. If you want to take those 2 years away, 16, but I was straight through, and I had a disadvantage going into my Ph.D. experience because all my cohort members were all certified teachers. So they all had undergrads and masters in teaching and license, and I didn't have that. I only have my lived experiences as my experience. So that was pretty much the thing that, the drive, that really choo-choo, just, and so 7 years I had to take advantage of opportunities. Like I drove sometimes hour and a half, 2 hours just to meet a professor who would help me. He bought my undergrad professor who helped me throughout my PhD. He bought a lot of my textbooks on his own, with his own money. So he can read the material and talk to me about it so I understood it.
Sure.
So he spent a lot of time, days, weekends, 7 years helping me get through.
It's difficult, I think, for a lot of folks in college. Some, they're in the bars 3 nights a week, sometimes more. I don't know how you can go to bars that often and still maintain a level of success in college. I'm assuming that wasn't part of your collegiate experience, hanging out in the bars. But, people, like you said, seeing something in you, seeing that you had the drive to want to do it, and them being willing to basically put their reputation on the line to help you. Of course, that drove you. And I would think, too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that seeing your own successes also helped to drive you to the next level. Is that a fair statement?
Sometimes. I think I'm very humble. I don't tell people I have a Ph.D. I don't really share my stuff. I just kind of do what I've been blessed to do. And so I think when I was, maybe in my undergrad and master's, I was fueled by I'm going to show you still, like the chip on my shoulder, and that wasn't very...
I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah, that wasn't very healthy for me because that takes a whole different mentality.
Takes a lot of effort, too.
Yes, and instead of proving to them, I need to prove to myself. And so then when I switched that, then it just became I'm doing it to help other people. I'm doing it to inspire other kids. I want to help versus, hey, look at me. I did this. And so I guess for me, I just want to help kids know that they can accomplish things,
Sure.
I always think about the phrase hope, right? HOPE stands for helping, opportunity, progress, empowerment. If you can help somebody, you're giving them opportunity to make progress. So when they see themselves making progress, they become empowered.
Sure.
And that's all I try to do is just try to tell kids, look, you could be empowered. You just gotta work hard. Like, I'll help you. I'm not gonna hold your hand.
Sure.
You know, I'm gonna guide you. I'm gonna pour love into you, but I'm not gonna babysit you. I got 2 little boys at home to watch.
Yeah. So you know, you are a husband and a father of
Yes.
just like you said, 2 little boys, 1 and 4, I think you said.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, your wife is very educated as well, and she's working on her Ph.D. at this time, correct?
Her DNP. Her
DNP, okay.
Doctor of Nursing Practitioner at the university here.
Okay. And so they, I'm sure, are benefiting from, you know, their learned parents,
Yes.
learning how to read at an early age. The one may be already starting to read. You know, let's talk a little bit about dyslexia, because 20% of kids in school having dyslexia, I'm still astounded by that high percentage. But I think a lot of us maybe know what dyslexia is, but you know, it may not be that everybody knows, or there may be some other things associated with dyslexia that we're not thinking of. So tell us what dyslexia really is.
It's comes from the science field, neurology in the brain. And I'm not a neuroscience, so I can't speak directly to that. But from an educational standpoint, it's students or adults who struggle with understanding the sound structure of our language, because you know, words have sounds in it. And so if a student sees a word like doctor, right, or dyslexia, like it's syllables, they might not be able to conceptualize what's on the paper or even read it, because they don't have a strong awareness of letters, and letters have sounds, and you put together and make a word. And so that also interrupts fluency. When they read a sentence, they skip words, and then it interrupts their comprehension, and then their spelling, and so that just all kind of goes in.
Sure. So there's a certain amount of phonetics that goes into this.
Linguistics too.
Okay.
You know, a lot. You got to really understand. For example, the word WYSIWYG.
WYSIWYG?
Yes, WYSIWYG.
I didn't even know that was a word.
Yeah. Yes. Can I see your pencil real quick?
Sure. He's writing on my notes now, folks.
So, the W, Y in WYSIWYG make the sound wi. The S makes the Z sound. With E, the I makes the E sound. And then the last WY is the same as wi. So it's wi, Z, wig, 3 syllables. And so a lot of people don't even spell it as it sounds. They spell it, I mean, it's very, people spell it all different ways.
Sure.
So students that can understand wi, Z, wig, 3 syllables. And so when students can understand how letters have sounds and combinations, then it becomes automatic repetition.
Sure, everything just sort of clicks.
Clicks, and the light clicks, and they flow. And it's actually a good word for what we do here. WYSIWYG, have you heard the word before?
No, never.
It's basically, it's a term, you see is what you get.
Okay.
A print,
Okay.
screen. So when you're seeing stuff on screens and
What you see
computers,
is what you get. Yep. Okay. I think that our language is a hard language. I mean, it's easy when you've been speaking it from little kid on, but for people who are trying to learn the language, now you at least knew the language, you just couldn't read, but for people who are coming here from another country, trying to learn English, it's a very strange language and a very difficult one to learn.
Too many rules.
Too many rules. We have 2 or 3 words that sound alike but mean something completely different. You know, like the word to, for example. Well, it can be T-O, it can be T-W-O, it can be T-O-O. again, sound the same, but
Yes.
mean something completely different.
Yes.
Where is another one that just comes to mind, you know,
Yes.
where did you put that?
Yes.
Or I'm going to wear this today.
That's correct.
You know, we've got so many words like that.
Yes.
And that is quite different
Yes.
from other languages.
Correct.
So this is, it's no easy feat to
No.
learn the English language.
One thing that Dr. Nash always told me, I never believed it until later in my career, is that if you could teach a student how to spell a word, they can do what? Read it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you teach a student how to read, it doesn't guarantee they can do what?
Spell it.
So a lot of people don't work on spelling. So if you just drill spelling, it becomes automatic then, just
Yeah.
repetition.
Yeah.
But if you just focus on reading the whole time,
They have to go hand in hand. They complement one
yes,
another.
but spelling is like the root to reading. Like if I build a house, I'm starting with the basement,
Sure.
going up. I'm not gonna start from the roof down. So that's a philosophical difference in education between whole language and phonics.
Okay.
People think, oh, Johnny will just learn. He'll just develop the words. His parents will read to him. He'll be exposed to libraries, exposed to museums. He'll have a rich exposure.
Mm-hmm.
That
Not
doesn't-
true.
Not true.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny might need that phonological, old school phonics instruction to help him get to that level of constructing knowledge. And I only say that because my own experiences, you know, growing up and being illiterate, now being on the other side, I can see both sides of the debate because I've
Sure.
lived it before.
Sure.
And so I guess I'm very fortunate to see both because that didn't work for me when I was younger.
Sure. Well, I think that you have lived both sides,
Yes.
I think that makes you very uniquely qualified
Yes.
to understand and hopefully help work with people on both sides of the spectrum. You know, what type of work did you do while you were in school? And when I say school, I'm talking about, you know, your college experiences, because by then you were trying to, you were learning how to read, you had learned how to read, still learning new things. And did you work at all in high school before you learned to read?
Yeah, like the grocery store. I was a bagger. Did like, you know, paper or plastic bags.
Yeah.
That's what I did when I was in
Yeah.
high school. You know, and you know, rake some leaves and show some walkways. But that's
Sure.
pretty much about it when I was growing up.
Okay.
That,
Things where you didn't depend on or need
to read.
read, sometimes even speak, other
Yeah.
than saying paper or plastic.
Yes.
You know.
And even in college, you know, I did some like volunteer type stuff. And then I worked at a factory here in Oshkosh. And I just put stuff on the belt line and
Okay.
let it roll down.
Yeah. But those jobs pay very well,
They do.
you know. So I never want to be knocking
No.
manufacturing jobs, and you're not either.
Hey, it put some food on the table and some cold drinks in my hand.
That's right. That's right. You know, you pressed on for your doctorate, and
Yes.
and what prompted you? I mean, most people would go with a bachelor's and a master's
Yeah.
and stop there.
Right.
What prompted you? And when you're going for a doctorate,
Right.
you know, you have to be published
Yes.
in places.
Yes.
You can't get your doctorate without it.
Yes.
So what prompted you to go on to get that Ph.D.?
I don't know, just something in my spirit just told me to go do it.
Something to do, right?
Yeah, basically. And my wife was like, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "I really don't know." I said, "I just want to do it."
Mm-hmm.
I think just to help other people learn more about the struggles I had and why, and then how I can help other young men and women avoid those pitfalls at a younger age.
Sure.
So I think it was more just to educate myself, but also be able to help other young men and women not make the mistakes that I made, or
Sure.
provide them opportunity younger to reduce the anger, or just give them opportunity
Sure.
so they could feel valued or feel like they have a voice.
You know, I want to go back to your explanation of dyslexia for just a moment, because we kind of got off on another topic, and I wanted to follow up on that. Dyslexia, I think a lot of people just think that dyslexia is seeing things backwards.
Right.
And Your explanation was much more involved, much more broad than just seeing, letters or even words or portions of words kind of inverted or backwards.
It can happen. Like when I was younger, I used to get my B's and D's mixed up, or my P's and Q's. So there are situations where students will mix up a letter or two based on the fact that they maybe don't have a sense of the sounds that the letters make. And that goes back to understanding linguistics, understanding the sound structure of our language, and how to say the letters. And so, happened to me.
Sure.
So happened to a point where I struggled even spelling my own name.
Really?
Yeah, growing up, and I used to fake it. I used to scribble really, really quick. So then I felt like I was, got done quick. And I see a lot of times where students struggle writing their names, first and last names.
Sure. For example, what would you get mixed up? Was it with your first name or your last name or both?
Both.
Really?
I would just write real fast. And then one time I wrote so fast that the students caught it and they started making fun of me because I had wrote my name, instead of saying Robinson, I say Robertson. And so Robertson versus Robinson. And so I wrote it Robertson.
Yeah.
And so that's just because probably, feeling embarrassed, but also wanting to feel accepted and rushing. So I just real quick.
But I can see where kids would make fun of that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's the deal, dude? You don't even know what your own name is.
Yeah.
I can see where that would be a huge source of bullying for someone wanting to make fun of.
Yeah, when I've done some work in the prison system with adults, I've seen some adults not able to spell their own names or do basic checks.
Sure. We're down to about 14 minutes here, and I want to talk about your books. One of the first things that we want to talk about is a book that you brought with us, with you, and we looked at it a little bit before, and why don't you hold that up so that the camera can pick up on that. The name of the book is Dr. Dyslexia, Dude, and this is a book that you and your wife wrote together.
Yes.
It's beautifully, let me just hold this up for a moment.
You want me to read an excerpt from it?
If you want, sure. I just want to show folks, how very beautifully illustrated this is. Bright, brilliant colors that kids can, colors, we're all attracted to colors. And it really, I think, is a wonderful book. I've not had a chance to read it, but I've certainly glanced over it. And is this available for folks online? Is it in a digital format or no?
Not digital yet, just
Okay.
print. But can I read something?
Absolutely, please be my
I
guest.
think this will help, address one of your questions. All right. I'm just going to skip and go right to a certain scene.
Go right ahead.
As his turn approached, Shawn could not understand what was being read and how the passages in the book were linked. While he was waiting his turn, Shawn practiced reading and rereading the passage to make sure he did not sound stupid. The impossible task, it's your turn to read now, Shawn. Why are you avoiding your teacher? Shawn, continue reading. Shawn, continue reading. You can't. Shawn was being attacked from both anxiety and dyslexia. Shawn then blurted out some inappropriate curse words out of fear. I don't want to read this bleep. Leave me alone. Let me out of here. Shut up, shut up, shut up. I'm not dumb. Shawn, go to the office. Shawn had saved himself by getting removed from class. So that happens a lot with kids.
Sure. And this book is, how can people get this book? So it's not online?
It will be online.
Okay.
Well, my website's a little delayed.
Okay.
Takes some time.
It does.
Yes, but they can just email me, and then, if they're interested.
Sure. Is there, because you did give us a website address, and I think we've been putting it up. When you say it's a little delayed, is there anything there right now? Okay.
Yes.
So they can just contact you right through the website if they want the book?
They could just email me at drdyslexiadude@gmail.
Okay, and is doctor spelt out?
No, it's just Dr. Dyslexia Dude.
Okay,
at Gmail.
Dr.
Yeah.
Dyslexia Dude
Yeah.
at gmail.com.
Yes, correct. And I think that, my experiences after my Ph.D. have led me to work in the WE Lab as a senior associate researcher under Jelando Jackson. And so I've been there 2 months, and I think, my hard work allowed me to get there. And I think he's another individual that saw talent in me. And so he's been a great mentor for me. And I'm really I'm just really blessed to have the opportunity to be at a great institution.
Sure.
Great department.
Tell us a little bit about your research work that you do.
Well, right now I'm collecting data, looking at different variables that impact students' reading, particularly of color, who are over-identified as being emotionally, behavioral disorder, and see how that has impacted their trajectory of their academic experiences. And also looking at teacher training too, how teachers are taught in reference to work with students with dyslexia. So there's two things I'm working on, but they kind of go hand in hand.
Sure. Do you think, Shawn, that, I realize that you're still doing research on this, but you are very learned and you have done a lot of research up to this point, even before you got this position
Yes.
at UW-Madison.
Correct.
Do you see a correlation between dyslexia, illiteracy, and racial bias? Because we haven't touched on that, but, is there a correlation there?
I'm not sure it's correlation, or is it just people's implicit biases. I mean, African American males are 2 or 3 more times to be over-identified as behavioral emotional disorder versus having a learning disability. So if you're tagged with that at a young age, that's all you hear and you see, you're going to respond to your environment.
Which is what you did.
Yeah, you're just going to respond to how people treat you, react to you. And so, I think, again, dyslexia affects everybody. It doesn't have any color to it, right?
Sure.
But if you don't have the resources to get help, a diagnostic assessment outside of a school costs anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000.
Wow.
So if you don't, you can come from a rural area, or you can come from the inner city. And if you don't have any money to help, you're pretty much waving for help or looking for that miracle, and that's what happens to a lot of students. They get caught up.
You mentioned earlier that there are so many free resources out there. In particular, you found resources at the collegiate level.
Yes.
Do you see resources, or do you know of resources out there that are free at the K through 12 level, that if folks out there, whether they're in the Oshkosh area or somewhere else, because this show is on YouTube, so they could be anywhere in the country or the world, are there resources out there that are free or very reasonably priced, because a lot of people are on fixed incomes, that they can take advantage of if they see that their child, or they suspect that their child or children have some kind of learning disability like illiteracy or dyslexia?
There's a Children's Center of Dyslexia that's in La Crosse, Milwaukee, and Madison.
Children's Center of Dyslexia?
Yeah, it's a center, and they focus on teacher training and providing free services to students with dyslexia, but there's a long waiting list to get on.
How long would you say it is?
I don't know, it's long.
It's long. So get on there early, like as soon as you find out you're pregnant, right?
I can't speak to practitioners in the area, but I know from talking to parents, one of the struggles is that since it's a hot market, dyslexia, everyone's opening up centers.
Sure.
And they're charging $65, $75, $45 every time.
Yeah, people can't afford that.
No. So when I moved up here, I found a donor who helped me get out and tutor, work with people. So I just charged $100 for 8 weeks.
Wow.
It was 3 days a week, hour and 15 minutes each session for 8 weeks. And I also provided a pre-test and a post-test, which again would cost $3,000 to $5,000. And I just charged $100. That was it.
And were you working with these folks in person? Is it an online thing?
No, I was working with them in person in groups.
Okay.
Both adolescents, and then when the adolescents start making progress in the reading, the parents who struggled took a class too. So I had.
We need to clone you so that you can be all over the nation, because this is not like we've been talking about. This is not a unique situation for people in Wisconsin.
I just think my opinion, I think you get better results if you provide a package to parents. That's a reasonable cost. Like $100 for 8 weeks, 3 days a week. That's like less than $5 an hour for me.
Sure.
Like I could charge more given my experience and my levels of education, but that's not why I do it.
Yeah.
I do it to help people.
Well, when you look at all the costs that parents have today,
Yes.
I mean, it used to be like when I was in school, I think most everything, including our books, was all paid for through taxes that folks were paying into the, on their property taxes, paying into the local school system. Today, however, the budgets are so strained, all governmental budgets, but especially in the school system. And so you've got parents, if their kids are involved in athletics, they have to pay for uniforms, they have to pay for all this other stuff. If you have kids in some other kind of extracurricular activity, they may have to pay for those things as well. But parents are also paying for books that are part of your basic core subject education.
Yes.
And, so then if you've already got, those expenses, and then you have a child or children who have a learning disability that's based on illiteracy and or dyslexia, then you've got additional expenses. And a lot of folks don't have that kind of money. So, I think to just take advantage of that, like some of these places are doing, is unfair. So kudos to you again.
I usually, with that $100 also includes textbook too.
Wow.
So I give them the textbook, the test, the pre-test, the post-test, 8 weeks of instruction. All I ask them is they buy one thing, a dictionary. That's it. That's all I ask for, a dictionary.
And a dictionary is so important.
It's very important.
And
I teach them how to use. That's what Dr. Nash did to me. He taught me how to use a dictionary. So I do the same thing to kids. Like, I'm going to help you. All I ask you is bring a dictionary. That's it.
Although, a dictionary, and I'm sure you've heard this before, maybe even experienced this, a dictionary is kind of a unusual thing because, you can try and look a word up in the dictionary to see what it means and so forth, but if you don't know how to spell it, you can't really look it up.
That's very true too.
And so I think that's one of the nice things about the internet, is if you have a general idea of what a word means, you can kind of type that in, and that'll bring up words for you. And then from there, it'll take you to dictionary.com or whatever. Because to just pick up a dictionary, man, it's tough.
Yeah, so it scares some people too.
Yeah.
But I tell, my own philosophy is that dictionary has a lot of knowledge in it.
It does.
Regardless, even like people religious, and they read different books, Bible or whatever for me, the dictionary is knowledge. It's taught me things that I've never known before if I didn't ever open up and learn.
Sure. Well, it tells you what a word means, but it also tells you how it's pronounced.
Spelling.
If you can understand the phonetic, writing of it. Gosh, we're so close to being out of time, and I mean, there's just so much more that I wanted to talk about. You have written or co-edited a couple of other books. Are those mostly for academia purposes?
No, not so much. The one that's coming out now is voices of mothers from all over the world who have children with dyslexia.
Okay.
And it's through Peter Lang Publishing Company, and it's just raw stories of mothers who were in the trenches fighting for their son or daughters help. It's not on there. Yeah, it'll be coming, I think, like first of the year.
What's the name of it again, Shawn?
What is the name of it?
You just said it.
I forgot.
All right, that's fine. So
It basically is stories of mothers sharing their untold stories to educators about their kids with dyslexia.
Okay.
The shorter version, but that's pretty much.
sure.
Yeah.
And so teaching students of color with dyslexia in special education to read, the time is now. That is something that's coming out in early to mid 2019.
May push back 2020 probably.
Oh,
now.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. All
A
right.
little behind.
And then there's another one, Untold Narratives,
Yes.
African Americans who received special education services and succeeded beyond expectations.
Yes.
And then, of course, you know, why don't you hold that up again? Dr. Dyslexia, dude. And that, you know, we can't promote it necessarily from a commercial standpoint, but if people are interested in it, it's $5, you know, and they can contact you through the website or through your email address here. And Dr. Dyslexia Dude at gmail.com is Shawn's email address. If you're not getting that, you know, if you're not able to write that down real quickly or whatever, just contact us here at ionoshkosh.com, and I'm happy to get it to you. Our email address is ionoshkosh@gmail.com. So just, you know, let me know, and I'm happy to pass the information on to Shawn here. So we're down to a minute and a half. I mean, we could do another few hours here, and I'd love to have you back sometime. But what advice do you have for parents or even kids who are older and having difficulty reading, who may be watching this program or listening to it on the radio and thinking, yeah, there's a situation here, whether with my child or with myself, that I feel I need some help. What advice would you offer them?
Well, I don't really give advice because that might not work for them. If I just tell parents to keep fighting the good fight. You can't give up. Like Rocky, right? You just gotta.
That's right.
You know, you just gotta keep going, and just stay positive and just keep pushing forward. Because at the end of the day, if you give up, you don't know what's gonna be beyond that door. So I just tell kids, you can never lose hope. You always gotta follow your dreams. You gotta turn your dreams into reality, and you can't be discouraged because everyone's gonna be discouraged in life.
Sure.
I had two professors
So keep pushing away, keep pushing forward, and take advantage of free opportunities or reasonably priced opportunities because at the end of the day, and I know this sounds trite, but at the end of the day, you cannot put a price tag on education and knowing how to read. And I guess that's the bottom line. So I want to thank you so much. I want to commend you for everything that you've been able to accomplish thus far. And I see the sky's the limit for you. But thank you for all that you've done. And I commend you so much. Very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here. We'll have you back another time. And that's going to do it for us. We will see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.